Hey guys, here in Asheville still, which is why we're not back in Virginia in my shed, but coming straight off the Asheville BWR yesterday and figured I'd give you guys a little bit of a race recap. Yeah, so this is the second BWR of the year. We started off with the San Marcos one back at the end of April, and now we're here June 11th for the second one here in Asheville. I was looking forward to this one because the San Marcos one was only 6 weeks or so after my big kind of off-season break after doing Cyclocross Worlds. So now, you know, I've had another month of training and I had a pretty big month in May. I got that BWR in San Marcos, and then I did a big FKT effort on the Rockstar Gravel. Followed that up with bike packing trip on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and then finally did the 5-day mountain bike stage race of Transylvania Epic. And that concluded my May, which was really big. So got all recovered from that, feeling good, and coming into Asheville here for the BWR. Again, 130 miles, there's like 13,000 feet of climbing, so about 100 feet per mile. And again, had pretty stacked field. The difference is a lot of guys were coming off of Unbound, which I thought would really help favor me and give me a chance to really have a good result here. You know, Pete Stetna's here, Griffin Easter, Brent Bookwalter lives in Asheville, he showed up. So yeah, plenty of competition. Let me start off by saying I think that I touched the camera lens with my grimy sunblock fingers at some point before the race, so all of the race footage is gonna have a little bit of a smudge on it. Sorry about that. I usually am pretty good about cleaning the lens, but I think I didn't take into account all the sunblock. Things started off pretty normal. We had a neutral rollout and things were pretty chill off the start. We hit the first kind of gravel sector and everybody was still together, but that was like a 10-minute effort, roughly at like 390 watts for me. That was maybe 5 miles into the ride. And from there, we then rolled with a big group of like 30 guys. And I think after that, some dudes caught back on. We hit the Tuxedos or Konya area, and there's some gravel there around the lake. Everything was really, really chill and stayed together for the first kind of 30, 40 miles or so. And then once we got to that 40, 60 mile mark, that's when things started to come apart. We hit the first aid, and then there was a good gravel descent off the first aid. And I think just like up until that point, there was a bunch of yo-yos that people could kind of handle the effort of kind of getting gapped and bringing it back. But about 40 miles in is when the people that were getting yo-yoed, the people in the back of the big group, kind of didn't start to come back to the front. We hit the lake for the second time and then did another kind of selection sector. There's like this ridge line, 2-track. You kind of have to pick your line through, and it's kind of false flat uphill, and that kind of like after that had a screaming descent, and that kind of really separated things. It came back together a little bit after that on this nice gradual paved climb, and then we started making our way into like the first big section of the day, which is different from last year. Last year we did a 105-mile course. This year's 130, and the course was roughly the same. There was a few little tweaks. The main way they got to that 130-mile mark from 105 was to make us do another lap up Pinnacle, which was kind of unnecessary in my opinion. 50 miles in, we hit this private property area, Camp Creek I think it's called, and turned right off of pavement and started climbing some really chunky gravel. And you could tell some of the roadie guys kind of bouncing all over the place. I found myself in really good position here and then held it. There was one guy kind of pushing pace up the road, followed by Brent Bookwalter, then myself and Griffin Easter. And this is where the main front group selection was made. It was super, super steep, There were some guys that got off walking, mostly because it was so steep. It was a bit loose, and a lot of guys on one by kind of didn't have that gearing to make it happen. Me being on a compact crank with a 3411, I was able to like spin my way up that pretty comfortably and maintain the pace. We popped out into this grassy open field that was mowed, and it had this like, it had a ton of switchback single tracks in it, and we dropped down the other side onto some gravel and finally into the paved valley that took us over to Pinnacle, and that was the main selection there. There's like 6 or 7 guys in that front group. Kyle Trudeau, Pete Stetna, Australian guy, Brent Bookwalter was there, Eddie Anderson, and once we popped out of the private property onto the pavement, we kind of were trading pools and made our way over to Pinnacle, and we were all together. That first lap up Pinnacle was about 60-ish miles in. That's where the screws tightened a little too much for me, and Brent and I came off the back of that lead group there. But I was fine with that. You know, Brent's a strong dude. He's raced numerous years on the World Tour for BMC. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm getting dropped here with Brent, you know, me and Brent can jam together. So we went over the top of Pinnacle together, and that's kind of where disaster struck for me, or at least the first bit of disaster. I was leading, and we hit one of the chunkier sections, and I got a puncture in the rear. And it was just bad. I tried to plug it, but it was a big puncture. There was stands everywhere. I couldn't really see what was going on. I aired it up with a CO2. The plug shot out, so then I had to put a tube in it. I had wasted the CO2 I had, and the second CO2 didn't pump it up enough, so then I had to borrow a hand pump from a passerby. Big thanks to that guy for stopping and helping me out. Once I got it aired up, we were good to go again. I was a little distraught, but you know, these things happen. I'm pretty sure Griffin Easter also flatted on that similar section. So like, this was, you know, flats are pretty common in these races. When you're pushing super, super hard on low volume tires like that, it's gonna happen. I was just content, you know, we were just over halfway in, so I was just content on pushing. I was still feeling good, the legs were good. I was hoping to catch more groups as riders were starting to blow. So dropped down off Pinnacle, and there was a cool little single track section down into the barn at Vree Branch, and that's where one of the big aids were. Dylan Johnson linked up with me right after that, and we rolled through DuPont together. I could see Clayton from Skyline and 2 CS Velo guys up the road, so made the bridge up to those guys, and that's when we started hitting Pinnacle for the second lap. The difference on the second lap, the way they kind of tried to make us feel like we weren't doing the same climb, was sending us left off of the gravel road onto single track that paralleled the gravel road. Then we would drop down back onto the gravel road of Pinnacle, and then pop off the right side and do this like unmaintained 2-track. It seemed like they literally just opened the gate and let us go through there, so that was like not my favorite. Came out of there, me and one of the CS Velo guys came out of there together, and I was really content with that. I was figuring, you know, dropping off a Pinnacle with some help, we could trade some pools on the pavement through DuPont and really start to bring groups back. However, tragedy number 2 struck. The tube I put in started losing some air. At first I thought it was because I didn't boot the hole. And I thought maybe like the tube was sticking out of the hole and got a puncture, but it turns out that I think it was maybe just a faulty tube, a tube that I had in my seat bag for too long or something, or maybe a piece of gravel that had gotten in when I did the tube install. But regardless, I had to do another tube. The problem was I didn't have one, so again, thank you to passerby who gave me a tube. You got an extra tube? Yeah. You mind? Dude, thank you. Saving me today. Yeah, that's right. You had a hand pump? Well, thanks, man. Yeah, of course. Good luck with the rest of the race. And let me use his hand pump, which I then gave back to him when I passed him not too much longer later. Taylor from CS Velo, the guy I was with, he ended up catching the group in front of us that was battling for a top 10 spot, so really bummed on missing out on that. For me, I was just kind of using it as training, trying to stay on the throttle a little bit. I was pretty much over the day at that point, just really wanting to get it done. So I kept pushing. I ended up picking up maybe 3 or 4 more spots and came in the end of the day at 16th. So 7.5 hours out there yesterday for me. Probably take 15 minutes off of that for tube time. Still a big day. Average basically 250 watts with 290 normalized power for 7.5 hours, 480 TSS. Like, it was a proper day, even though I had those problems. The bright side, I felt really good and fitness was there. I just did not have luck on my side. So kind of bummed about that, because I was hoping to, you know, with the guys coming off of Unbound, I could have a good finish spot and then use that to help me catapult higher into the BWR overall standings. But we'll see. There's 2 more BWRs left. The Cedar City race in September, and then in October there's the final round of Lawrence, Kansas. So 2 more chances to kind of best my BWR overall results. Still a good time. The course was really hard. I think everybody that did it was stoked on it. It's good bits of gravel sections, and Western North Carolina mountains they always feel a little bit like home to me, so it's kind of nice racing here again. As for now, we're still in Asheville, and we're gonna use the afternoon to go float the French Broad. Nice chill day, try to recover. And then Thursday I fly out to Oregon for the best of both on Saturday, which is a multi-surface race. It's 100 miles of single track pavement and gravel. And then on Tuesday, after that, I start the Oregon Trail Gravel Grinder, a 5-day gravel stage race. So yeah, lots of opportunities to use these good feelings that I'm having right now. And yeah, just fingers crossed for better luck. Thanks for watching, and I guess we'll see you guys at the next one.